This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Main Street. Gary Allen with you. We've got a good show for you today. Only one guest on, because this gentleman covers a lot of territory in the South Florida community. But I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for viewing our programs when we put them on YouTube. Very soon, as soon as we get some technical stuff worked out, we're going to be on Spotify. So you'll be able to watch some of the past programs as well as some of the upcoming programs that we've got. We've got some comedy shows coming up for you, which are going to be a big treat for you. We also have the MUFON people coming on. You're saying to yourself, well, who are they? Well, they are the people that you would probably, if you ever watch the Ancient Aliens on television, they are people who investigate UFOs, USOs, which are the ones that go underneath the oceans and stuff. They're coming on in a couple of weeks, and I'm very excited about that. Very, 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 very excited about having them on because let's be honest with you, with all the billions and billions of planets that are being discovered out there, as well as the solar systems and stuff and the stars, if we're arrogant enough to think we're the only ones that are here, then we've got some very serious problems. Of course, a lot of people probably wouldn't know what to do if one landed. They'd probably take a shotgun to the individual, creature, whatever you want to refer to. But they're going to be on, and it's going to be exciting. I did book a very famous comedian, and I mean famous comedian. He'll be with us in September. That's the earliest I could get him. He and I are friends from my old days in Los Angeles. And also, we are both Chicagoans in a sense. He's from there. I lived there for about 10 years with my late wife. And so I am considered a Chicagoan. It's kind of interesting. I still follow the Cubs a little tiny bit, not the Bears so much, but I follow the Cubs. I mean, when it comes to pro football, I'm more or less into college football. We've got a sports show coming up at the end of the month. We have my co-host, as always, Dave Lamont, along with Jeff DeForest, or Defo, as many of you probably know him. And we may have a very special guest coming on. We're working on that right now. So without further ado, just to let me say this right up front, I want to thank the Japanese Gardens of Miami for their continued support of this program, as well as the Elks Lodges of South Florida for their continued support of this program. My guest and only guest for today is a gentleman who is the past president of the Elks Lodge 1676, Mr. Rick Del Vecchio. He is also currently the president of the Friends of the Japanese Gardens of Miami. We're going to talk about some events coming up there, as well as he is the past president of the Miami chapter of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And I know Rick is very much into magic. As a matter of fact, he's introduced me to a lot of magicians over the years. None of them, however, would do anything for me when it came to getting rid of my ex-mother-in-law. She was my mother-in-law at the time. So, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Without further ado, and he's also the executive producer of this particular program, and he's been like a big brother to me for a very, very long time. Would you please welcome my dear friend, Rick Del Vecchio?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Did you enjoy that introduction? It was long.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I'm a big hero, I guess, huh? In my own mind.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you what. But yeah, as I was saying to the audience here, that we've got some great shows coming up. And of course, a lot of it's in September. In August, we have some good stuff coming. But I'm excited about today's program because I know you want to talk a little bit about the Elks Lodge. You want to talk about the Japanese Garden, and you want to talk about the Brotherhood of Magicians, which is fantastic. So where do you want to begin, sir?
Let's start with the Elks, okay? I've been a member for 17 years. I've held several positions there, past exalted ruler or president, and I've been a trustee. I've been what they call a leading knight, which is sort of the vice president. And but truthfully, all those positions are very important. But I also decided a couple years ago, to look into the grant program. The Elks are of course, our Elks Lodge is part of the National Benevolent Protective Order of Elks. And in the state of Florida, we have 71 chapters. Yep, that's
just look behind me, folks.
Right over Gary's head. And each lodge,
like everything else in my life, it's over my head.
Over his head. But one of the benefits is they have the Elks National Foundation, and that they offer grants for the local lodges. All we have to do is write the grants, and of course, if it's a worthy cause, they approve it. And the past 3 years I've been doing it, we've gotten $65,000 in grants. Most of that, I'd say about 45 to 50,000, we've used to help homeless veterans. As you know,
Yes.
Miami-Dade has a huge population of homeless veterans. There's like 36,000 nationwide. But here in our backyard, we try to do as much as we can. And we've written grants, and Captain Fred Jocko, who you've met before, Captain Fred is
He's my captain.
right. He's a Vietnam vet just like yourself. And Fred has dedicated his past years to work with me to help these homeless veterans. And even though I write the grants, Fred is my co-writer. Once we get the money, we purchase the necessary items. And then our lodge gets together with about 15 to 20 members who volunteer to pack backpacks filled with necessities that the VA says they need. And then we deliver these to the VA, and they distribute it to homeless veterans. And the backpacks are obviously reusable. That's why we have them. They're very good, sturdy knapsacks or backpacks, and we fill it depending on which group of veterans we're helping. There are some veterans that are in temporary shelters, and there are some, because the shelters get taken really quick. So there's some that are actually on the street. So the ones that are on the street, Fred actually goes out on the street and meets these veterans, thanks them for their service, and of course gives them the backpack. That backpack has mosquito repellent. It has raincoats. What do you call those raincoats?
Rain Parkas.
Parkers, and also tents. It sounds crazy, but if you're on the street, a tent comes in very handy, where they can pitch a tent, and they got some protection from the elements, as well as the ponchos. That's what I was looking for, rain ponchos.
Yeah.
And we've got mosquito repellent, and then we have other types of toiletries that they may need out there. We
Yeah.
even give them individual laundry packets, because they go to a laundromat and can do their clothes occasionally. And of course, we give them food cards where they can go into a Kentucky Fried Chicken and get a dinner with vegetables and salad, whatnot, and use that at a Kentucky Fried Chicken or even a McDonald's. So
Yeah.
we do the best we can. Then the folks that aren't on the street, their pack is a little bit less. They don't get the rain ponchos or the tents, but they get protein bars and pretty much the same thing, toilet paper, stuff like that the other vets get. So that was the veterans. Now, you did have somebody on the show a month or two ago from the Modern Towers in Homestead.
Yes.
And that's a facility where it's beautiful. There's one building built that's ready for to be occupied. And we work with our sister lodge, the Miami Lodge 948, and Sharon Weiss. She's the one that introduced me to this program. This apartment complex, they have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, and they're beautiful. Granite kitchen tops, modern stainless steel appliances, fully furnished. And what we do is, actually, they're not fully furnished. The Elks will work with the VA and the On Your Six Foundation, which actually is the intermediary between the VA and Modern Towers. And they take applications for folks that want to qualify to move in from the streets or temporary housing into permanent housing. And it's a beautiful facility in Homestead. And that one building has 290 units, I think, and we're filling that up. And where the Elks come in addition to these grants that we write, they also have a welcome home package. And that welcome home package, anybody transitioning from temporary housing or the streets to permanent housing, we can give them up to $600 to furnish that apartment. $200 has to go toward a bed, which there are beddings for $200 that we work with as a company that makes beds specifically for that. And then the other $400, the veteran can choose what he wants to spend it on. It might be dishes and knives and forks. It might be a microwave. It might be an air fryer. It might be a coffee machine. Whatever they want, and they could use that money to move into this apartment. and that's the welcome home kits. And like I say, Sharon Weiss has been doing that now for several months. We just met up with her about a month ago, and our lodge is going to start helping her out with the welcome home kits. And I am working on grants to make another $6,000 to $10,000 I can use to fill their pantry with food and still help some homeless vets along the way.
Right,
So
right.
that's the good work we're doing with the ENF, the Oaks National Foundation, and aside from that, there's also a hoop shoot, a national hoop shoot for kids from I think it's 8 to 13, national soccer shoot, and we're sponsoring both those events again this year. Kids in our neighborhood in South Miami we're going to have folks contacting their schools and their gym teachers to let them know anybody who wants to join can sign up, and we'll have preliminary contests for that. So it's a nice athletic, both hoop shoot and soccer shoot, where they can win prizes and hopefully move on to the regionals, the state, and then possibly the nationals.
Right, right.
And then, of course, we also have the Scholarship Foundation, where, interesting enough, the Elks National Foundation issues more scholastic academic scholarships, second only to the U.S. government. And that's saying something, because you think of all the corporations that, give millions of dollars. The Elks is right up there, right behind the U.S. government. So all the charitable work they do is really amazing. And that's one reason why I joined. Actually, I'm lying to you. The first reason I joined was we needed a place for my magic club to meet. And on a sad note, Jim Progress, the reason I say sad note, Jim Progress, who'd been a member of our magic club for 35, 40 years, he was also an Elk. And 17 years ago, we needed a place to meet, and he recommended we meet at the Elks. And we've been meeting there ever since. Now, the reason I say sad note, Jim and I, in the past 6, 7 months, he was living in assisted living. We'd have lunch once a week. And I just found out that he passed away yesterday at the age of 91.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry to hear that.
not only was he a great Elk and a great guy, I mean, one day we'll do a story just on him. He was a jazz pianist, and I'm talking fantastic jazz pianist, one of the tops in the world. And he wrote charts for Quincy Jones in his day. He performed in bands, and he was a teacher. And he taught at Berkeley University up in, I guess that's in
California.
Boston.
No. What's it? Boston?
Yeah, up in Massachusetts, I believe. Yeah, there's one in California, but this is the Berkeley School of Music.
Oh,
And
okay.
he was a professor there that did a great job. And then he came down to the University of Miami, where he was the professor of music with the Frost School of Music, and that's where he retired from. Yeah, and he has lots of students that went on to make a really good livings in the music world. And Jim was a great guy, and he'll be missed. But like I said, that's how I got into it, through the social aspect for our magic club. Then I got, they threw out a fishing rod and put a little hook in my mouth. And why didn't you become an officer? Why didn't you become an officer? And just a trustee, they don't do anything. And of course, that's a joke. And slowly but surely, I became an officer and then got involved. And then later, of course, found out about the charitable work. And that's been a good mission of mine in the last few years, to write these grants and help out as many folks.
Do people, Rick, when they inquire about the Elks or the American Legion or any other organization that does what you do at the Elks, are they surprised at the membership, or I mean,
Of what we do? Yeah.
Yeah, A, what you do, and B, do they think it's sort of some secret organization that they can't be a member of?
Yeah, all of the above. In fact, as we talked, as you mentioned, with the magic, I've created great community partners between the Magic Club and the Elks, the Friends of the Japanese Garden, and the Elks and the Friends of the Japanese Gardens with the Magicians. All three, over the years, have become great community partners together. And again, we have a board of directors, so it's not me saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that. The board of members have to agree. And touching on the Elks with not knowing and things like that, when I wrote my first artist grant, the Magic Club is a Florida nonprofit, just like the Elks. It's a fraternal organization, and it's designated as a 501c8. But when you write a government grant, you have to be a 501c3. The Friends of the Japanese Garden is a 501c3, and I've been writing grants to do festivals on behalf of the city of Miami for years. And I was talking to the grant the people that administer the grants, and I told them, I said, I have this magic club. And they said, well, if they're not a 501c3, the Japanese Garden can act as a fiscal agent for them. And I only found that out 3 years ago, going on 4 now. We just wrote our 4th grant. And I applied in that first year, 4 years ago. The head of the grants, again, an artist grant, a lot of people who are into art think of, Rembrandt and Picasso. Well, magic is a performing art. So it did qualify, but when I did the qualifying papers, the gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he's the boss over Miss Toussaint, Jodine Toussaint, who is my actual person contact that I write the grants and converse with. Her boss called me with her, and they both start off like this. Look, we all love magic, and magic is a performing art, but you're going to have this event at the Elks Lodge? I said, yeah. And he said, quote unquote, isn't the Elks just an old man drinking establishment? and I laughed and you laughed. And truthfully, that's how it started out. Back in 1865, you'll get a kick out of this, Gary. It was a bunch of actors in New York. There was no place to drink on Sundays because of the blue laws. So they started their own fraternal organization. They were the Jolly Corks back then. And about 10 or 12 of them would meet and basically drink and talk about, gigs, working at a play or at a theater or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them died, and they hooked up a collection to help bury him with his wife, for his widow, helped his widow out with some money. And they said, look, why don't we do more than just drink? Let's turn this into a charitable organization. And slowly but surely, they built, it turned out to be the Elks. And it did start. And Jolly Cork's an interesting story. To get a new member, there was an initiation. And part of the initiation, we don't do this now, so I'm not giving anything away. They'd sit around with the new member and they say, we have a contest. And what's the contest? Well, it's a drinking contest. Everybody gets a cork. And on the count of 3, you drop the cork. And the last person to pick up their cork loses and has to buy a round of drinks for everybody. Well, what the 10 members knew that the new guy didn't know is when they count to 3, nobody expected, except the new guy, dropped his cork. The others held it. So they beat him to the drawer and he had to buy a round of drinks. So they were known as the Jolly Corks. But then again, like I said, it evolved into a charitable organization. And for those listening, to date, we've given over $5.5 to $6 billion in charity to local communities. And it's really something, the charitable work they do. And that's what I'm proud of. And like you, Captain Fred, served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. And we both serve for different reasons. He serves obviously because he's a veteran, and like you, he survived, and he's thankful for that. And he does it in the memory of his buddies that didn't make it. And also because, between Vietnam, homeless vets, and of course with the Afghanistan, Iraqi stuff, all these guys that are living on the streets, and 23 commit suicide every day. And he's on a mission to try to cut that number and get these people off the street. And when he asked me why I'm doing it, I said, well, just the opposite, the same reason, but for a different reason. I didn't serve. Yeah, and you know that, Gary. I never served in the military. I didn't run away to Canada, but my number was 321, and I didn't see any reason to, volunteer like you guys did. And I kind of feel that this is my way of at least thanking these veterans that did the job I was not willing to do. And that's honest. I mean, I can't be any more honest than that,
Yeah. It is. I've said this many times, and you've heard me say this, and people that are watching in and who will be watching this program have heard me say this before. It is a disgrace to this country that we don't take care of our veterans and their families, by the way, because some of these housing conditions, we went over that a few weeks ago when we had the people on from Homestead. The housing conditions are just unbearable.
Yeah.
And yet our dear friends in Washington, and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, because I know
Yeah.
how you feel about this, Rick, they
Yeah.
don't care. They really don't care.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Most of them have not served in the military, and those that did, they forget. Very amnesia sets in very quick when they
Yeah.
think about putting money in their own pockets, and that's all I'm going to say on it. But it
Right.
is a national disgrace that our veterans and their families are treated the way they are. I mean, it takes some veterans. I did a veteran show not long ago with people from around the country, and it takes some veterans many applications before they start even getting their benefits.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm not talking about their education benefits. Those come
Right.
to you almost
Right.
automatically if you want them. But I'm talking about other kind of benefits, your
Health
disability benefits, health
benefit.
benefits, this and that and the other. How many veterans I've known that have been waiting to go see a VA doctor and have died before they could get in to see a VA doctor. Now, a
Sure.
lot of that has to do with the appropriations and the medical facilities upon where you are, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of variables, but to me, it's a national disgrace. It just
Right.
truly is.
It is. So, well, anyway, with the outside, now that's the good work they do, the good charitable work they do. And for folks listening, we encourage new membership, okay? And the younger, the better, because on a national level, the Elks age is 65, and I'm even above that. And I was talking to a young fellow today, and he is a young member. I said, you got to get more of your age group in here because we ain't going to be around much longer. This will be your organization. And there is a fun side to being an elk. Our lodge, for instance, every Tuesday we have Jeff Zavak. He's a remarkable musician. He plays several instruments, and his jazz group plays, and it's phenomenal. Then on Thursday we have open mic. So if you're a musician, you come to open mic, you get to sing 3 or 4 songs, and it's a lot of fun. And then Fridays, we have a different thing Friday because we haven't found anything that works. Actually, we did, but the first Friday is comedy and magic night, and it's free. So if you're hearing this show and you're not an elk, you can come as my guest on any of these nights. You tell them Rick Del Vecchio sent you. And if I'm not there, one of the other members will sponsor you in. And no heart, we don't twist anybody's arm. We just let you see the lodge and have fun, and then give you an application and information about the good work we do.
Mhm.
But the first Friday is comedy and magic. The second Friday is another jazz group, Jake Monk and the Miami Jazz Tets. Then on the third Friday, this is a sellout. And when I say sellout, it's free, but we pack the place. It's standing room only in the lounge, and it's Ronnie Berman's big band. And they get about 16 to 18 musicians, 2 or 3 vocalists, and these guys are phenomenal. I mean, you go back to the Sinatra and the Dean Martin and that era, it's phenomenal music. Tony Bennett, and it's just great music. And for the younger folks, Lady Gaga made tons probably of money and fame when she teamed up with Tony Bennett, before he passed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
kind of brought the interest of that type of music back. And I tell you, it's great music. And then on Thursday, I already went Thursday and Tuesday. Saturday, on the second and fourth Saturday, I host karaoke. Okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you've never heard Rick Del Vecchio sing before, you're in for a treat when you hear him sing now.
Well, let me tell you something. A good friend of mine, Jimmy C., who's a magician, and he also is a fine vocalist himself. He's from Rochester, New York. And when he was there years ago, he moved down to Florida several years ago. He maintained or managed 30 guys who were karaoke performers, or whatever you call it. They ran
MCs.
MCs, thank you. Karaoke DJs, whatever they call them. And he says, Rick, I kept these guys busy, 30 guys busy in nightclubs throughout Rochester and the surrounding area. And when I told them about, sometimes there's people that really can sing good and some people that are sing okay and some that really think they can sing, he laughed. He goes, Rick, you got to understand something. No bar ever made money off of somebody who could sing. They make money off of the people who think they can sing. And you got that 3 groups. And I'm not going to people by name, but we got it. You got people that are really like you have to bite your lip from laughing, to the people that you say, "Holy crow, how come this guy isn't making money singing?"
Yeah.
So, but it's a good, and it's fun. It's all in good spirit, and we enjoy having everybody come in and do it. Now, the third Saturday, and then I'll get off from the Elks, but the third Saturday is the TOTS Tots. This is part of one of the grants I wrote. I wrote an impact grant I got approved in December. And I tried getting this grant 2 years in a row. The first year I didn't get it. It's a competitive grant. They only issue 7 this year, and our lodge was lucky enough to get one of them. And what that is, this, Gary, because you've interviewed the folks. We teamed up with the University of Miami and Southeast Nova University CARD program. The
Yes.
CARD program is the Center for Autistic and Related Disabilities. And the money we use, we have 4 quarterly events. The first was a barbecue with athletic events, a hoop shoot and a soccer shoot. For those that weren't athletic, we had a board, game room where they had board games and digital games. And for those that were on the shy side, we had a quiet room, and their families could come. And let me tell you, we had over 100 and some odd people show up, and the families of these people with autism were so thankful. They said this is the first time an organization has reached out to them, other than the University of Miami. They're talking a private organization, and they thought the event was fantastic. The second event we had, which was a few weeks ago, was a bingo, and they recommended bingo, and we had about 100 people show up for that. And we gave prizes out to everybody who won. It didn't cost anything. It was free to play, and we gave them pizza and whatnot. And then part of the TOTS program, in addition to the other 2 quarterly events that we're going to do, every third Saturday is talent. And Ramon Matos, I think he's been on the show, maybe not, I don't remember.
Isn't he the current president?
He just gave up. He was president in 23-24. His term ended on March 31st, 24. Ramon was the first autistic exalted ruler or president of a club in the state of Florida, and possibly the nation. They never did verify that. But Ramon did a great job. Our lodge did great under Ramon. And Ramon is my co-writer of this grant, and he's the one that came up with the acronym TOTS, Talent of the Spectrum, it's called. And we've had people who come who are artists and paint, and the paintings are unbelievable. Another one that played the piano, and it was classical music, very talented. Another one sang. 2 of them sang. One recited a scene from a play, and you would think you're watching a Broadway play. This woman was so good. So that, and it's also schmucks like me that'll come and sing or they'll play the guitar. And we have some very talented people in our lodge that really can play guitar and other instruments and sing. And they perform together, because it's one of the things that autistic people and folks with Asperger's is the socialization. It's hard for them to socialize. So we do this the third Saturday of every month, and it's great to meet these folks and see how talented they are. So that's pretty much what the Elks do. And I did that in about the first half hour.
Yeah. Let me just remind everybody you're watching Main Street Gary Allen with you. My guest is Mr. Rick Del Vecchio, the past president of the Elks Lodge 1676. I always get that wrong. He is currently the president of the Friends of the Japanese Gardens in Miami, which are beautiful gardens right there on right near the port. And he's also the past president of the Miami Chamber of the International Brotherhood of Magicians.
Correct.
I think I got that right.
Yeah, and that's not chamber. It's called the Magic International Brotherhood of Magicians. It's the largest magic fraternal organization in the world. Society of American Magicians is the oldest in the United States, and I'm a life member of both. And the International Brotherhood of Magicians, I've been past president. I was also territorial vice president for the state of Florida years ago. Now Jeff Silver is, and of course, this is an organization made up of professional magicians, part-time professional magicians, hobbyists, and amateurs, and collectors. You don't have to do a magic trick, but if you like to collect magic and learn about it, you're welcome. And we meet the first Thursday of every month at the Elks Lodge. And like I said, by being an Elk, our lodge years ago, they have a beautiful ballroom and stage area. And this is what I explained to that gentleman when we said we're doing the event there. And years ago, the magician said, look, why don't we donate a curtain for the stage? And we did. It was a $5,000 theater
Wow.
curtain. It's fireproof, meets all the regulations. And that thing is a beautiful curtain. It's been in use for 15 years now. And not only do we use it when we do a magic show, but what the Elks rents that ballroom out to different organizations, and they'll have a DJ or a band perform on stage, and they have use of the ballroom and the stage. And the stage, not only did we donate the curtain, but we donated lighting and sound equipment, which comes in very handy and helps them with their rentals,
Yeah.
which they desperately need to stay in business.
I remember you and I, was it in Las Vegas that we went to see Harry Anderson, which
Yeah.
you knew him.
Right.
And I had I had my picture taken with Harry, and I
Right.
have and you got
Yeah.
it signed for me.
Yeah.
But you have known some of the top magicians in the
Yeah.
country.
Well, I actually worked with Harry. I met him. I'm going to forget the year, but anybody who knows Baptist Hospital, they opened up their cardiac care center years ago, and it was a new cardiac care center. It's still there, obviously. And they hired Harry Anderson to do a stage show or a parlor show, about a 20-minute parlor show. And they hired me and two other magicians to do walk around magic leading up to it. And that's where I met Harry. And, I'm not going to say we became friends, but we exchanged phone numbers and email addresses, and we kept in contact. Then several years later, I hired him because a friend of mine, Bob Holtzman, did PR for University of Miami Jackson. Not the university. Well, yeah, it's University of Miami Jackson Hospital. Okay.
Yeah.
And they were having the Magic of Jackson as their annual fundraiser. I take it back. I'm getting two things screwed up. That was a different magician. It was Children's Hospital was doing their fundraiser. It's now Nicholas Children's Hospital, but then it was Miami Children's Hospital. And I hired Harry on their behalf to work that show. And that was about a 45-minute show.
Yeah.
And again, myself and Renee Perdigon, Will Golden, and Leo Holtzman, we worked with Harry doing close-up magic before the show.
Yeah. And for those of you who are not familiar, Harry was the judge on Night Court.
Correct.
On the original show, in the Night Court, he was the judge. Funny as can be. But when I got to meet him, nice as can be, down to earth.
Well,
and God took him way too young.
Yeah. And the last time I think I saw him, because I'm trying to, my brain is there. Might have been, no, it was not at the convention that he worked. It was, I think it was with you in Vegas.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was Chicago, because I saw him in Chicago one time too. But, and the time, I take it back, when he worked the Hyatt Regency for the hospital. Afterwards, we got a drink in the bar, and he was talking about how lucky he was and how thankful he was. And he says when he did the show with Shadow Stevens was about Dave Barry, Dave's World. That was after Night Court closed. He was telling me, and I hope, well, Shadow may not be listening, but he goes, they were talking, and Shadow was saying to Harry, complaining, man, I'm only getting $15,000 an episode. And he says, Rick, I sat him down. I said, look what you do for a living. There are people in the United States that are happy to make $15,000 a year working 40 hours a week. And he says, and you're bitching about doing a TV show where you're making 15 grand an episode and you got residuals for when you retire. And Harry said to me at that point, Dave's World was gone. But he says, he went back to doing magic in New Orleans and also at clubs. And like I said, I hired him. But he says, what the show business did, he was a smart guy. He invested in his retirement, and he was secure in his retirement, and he was very well off. And him and his wife, Elizabeth, after Hurricane Katrina, they moved to Asheville. I don't know if it's North Carolina or South. I think it's North Carolina, but
North Carolina,
Asheville, and that's where he lived. And till he passed away from a stroke in his sleep. But
Yeah, that story brings back a thought of mine. As you know, I lived in Los Angeles for a lot of years
sure,
as a young actor, which I wish I had pursued the radio business instead of my acting career. Because as Tubby once said, like with my comedy, even though Bud Friedman told me I was pretty good, but like Uncle Tubby used to say to me, ladies and gentlemen, my uncle was Tubby Boots, who was on Miami Beach forever in the day. He used to say my career was let's see, I was on the downside of a mediocre career to begin with. So it was like, and then Tubby would come out to see me in LA every once in a while, and it was we always had a whole lot of fun. But I have some friends of mine who are on soap operas,
sure,
and back in the day, 30 years ago. Now,
sure.
Will Schreiner's brother Ken is a friend, and he was on General Hospital forever. But the minute they started getting their paychecks shrunk, one friend of mine who is now retired, but he was
Yeah.
on The Young and the Restless forever. He was making $15,000 a week.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is huge.
They shrunk him down
Yeah.
to maybe 6.5, 7,000
Right.
because the soap operas are not nearly as popular this last 15, 20 years. Many of them have gone off the air. There's only 3 or 4 left. You would think they murdered his mother. I mean,
Well, and that happens in sports. Well, I'm in advertising, as you know, and
Yeah.
over the years, I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to.
Well, that's how we met. You were in
Yeah.
advertising.
I don't want to tick anybody off because they might come and beat the crap out of me. But I met a lot of ex-Dolphins who went to work at radio stations,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate. All great people. Again, I'm not saying anything negative about it, but it's the reality. Especially when you're a defensive player or even an offensive guy who's a blocker, your lifespan or career is like 6 or 7 years. So even though you might be making 800,000 or $1 million a year after taxes, if you don't put a big chunk of that away for your future, you end up working at a radio station. And again, nothing wrong with that. My friends in radio kill me. You can make 100,000, 200,000 a year in radio, but you go from where you were a superstar making big bucks to where now you're just, starting out, and it's tough. You can make good money in any field, but you're starting from the bottom. And these guys had to work hard, and a couple of them stayed with it and did very successful, and a couple of them, like a revolving door, like in any industry. But there were some who, when they got to that point, they couldn't get credit. Their credit was hurt where they couldn't even get a car loan because, I work with car dealers, and they try to get cards for these guys, and they just messed up their credit. Why? Because they used to make an 800 grand a year, and they lived that way and tried to live that way after their paycheck stopped. And so that's it. It's any industry, really.
Yeah. You can turn around and it's gone in an instant. My brother was a prime example of that. I mean, the biggest contract he ever had, and which was not his first contract. His first contract was small, but his biggest contract he ever had was after they won Super Bowl V. That year, right. He did a Brill Cream commercial. Right. How he ever got that, I don't know. But he did a Brill Cream commercial. They did very well in the playoffs the upcoming year. I think he made 180 grand, and 90% of that came from the Brill Cream commercial.
Wow. Yeah. In the olden days, I knew Bill Trout, and he was telling me at the height of his career, that's back in the 70s, he made 70 grand a year, and he spent 7 years in the NFL, and it was good memories, I guess. And
I mean, it is great memories, and show business, great memories, but you can't, like right now at my age, who's, I mean, I'm looking for a part-time job where I live, and people are like, you're 71 years old, Gary, come on,
So, but anyway, getting back on track, it's easy to get off track, but the truth of the matter is, any industry, whatever you pick, try to be smart about it. And be thankful you have a job, because there's a lot of people who don't. Now, getting back to the Magic Club.
Yes.
We started off, I got into the Elks through Magic, as I told you about Jim Progress getting me in there. But we put on events every year, and we have one coming up. It's a couple months away. Well, not that far. It's about 8 weeks away. It's September 21st. And I've got 3 great acts hired. A fellow named T.C. Tahoe Now, again, these may not be household names to non-magicians, but if you Google these guys, T.C. Tahoe was Parlor Magician of the Year twice in a row at the Magic Castle out in Los Angeles and
Oh,
Southern
yeah.
California. Um, a fellow by the name of Todd Charles. He's out of Florida here. This guy has made a living working. He worked. If you Google him and see what he's done, he's worked casinos for Merv Griffin out in Vegas. He opened for superstars out there with his comedy act, and then he's working what do you call it, state and county fairs, and his act is bizarre. Go online, Todd Charles, Magician, and you'll see the craziness he does. And we were lucky to get him in for our September 21st event. Now he's comedy magic, totally different than TC Tahoe, but two different styles. But they are comics. So we wanted a straight magic act in between. And I got a friend of mine right here in Miami who came from Cuba just a year or two ago, speaks great English. He speaks much better English than I speak Spanish, that's for sure. And his name is Rogelio Ruiz, Roger, we call him. And he just won back about 4 weeks ago the World Championship in Stage Magic at the IBM SAM Joint Convention. I take it back. It was the IBM convention in Tacoma, Washington. That was last month. And he has a great manipulation act, which is straight magic, really well choreographed to music. And so that's fantastic acts you'll see that night. And it's funny because even though they're not household names, everybody who's gone to the shows I produced over the past 15 years has said what a great show it is. And they all say the same thing. How are you going to top this year, next year? Because this was the best. And it is a challenge. But, other than David Copperfield, if you asked a regular person on the street to name 4 magicians, they may say David Copperfield. And then depending on how old they are, they might remember Siegfried and Roy, who unfortunately Roy passed away and Siegfried just passed away too.
Yeah.
That they dominated the Las Vegas Strip. Lance Burton, again, not a household name here, but if you were in Vegas, he had $100 million contract with the Monte Carlo. And then you have Chris Angel. Then you have the Blackstone family and Harry Houdini. But on top of that, you've got thousands of guys making a damn good living, performing magic all over the world. And we bring these people from wherever they are to Miami for that one day. And people in Miami get to see these acts.
Okay, here's a question I've always wanted to ask you.
Sure.
Okay, you're a magician.
Yep.
I am not. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Is it mental dexterity, the physical dexterity with your hands? What is it that makes it work besides all the flash and dash in between to sort of camouflage what you're actually doing?
Okay, it's both. It's both. It's psychological and it is dexterity. And to touch on it, I have a friend of mine, Alex Teixeira. He's a mentalist. You met Alex. Yeah, he's a mentalist.
Alex is our voice.
Right. And he does the intro to the show. And Alex is another example. Alex has been a mentalist for as long as I've known him, 30 some odd years. But his full-time profession, he was a voiceover actor. And for years, he had contracts with AMC, Discovery, several of the cable things. And years ago, he voiced over a 7 1-hour part series on the history of World War II. And what's happening to voiceover actors is artificial intelligence. Now, if you're a big name and there's a movie and they want to use a Robert De Niro or somebody like that to voice over, it's their name they use in the advertising. Robert De Niro as so-and-so, and, this actor, Jennifer Lawrence, is this one. But when you're a guy making a living named Alex Teixeira, nobody knows that guy as they do a De Niro. So when you're doing TV commercials or you're doing a 5-part series and you realize you can have artificial intelligence do that for a fraction of the cost of paying.
You know what I'd like to do, Rick? Next time you're on, which will be sometime in September.
Yeah.
We haven't picked a date yet. See if we can get Alex on
Oh,
because
he'd love to go on for sure.
because I did VOs for a long, long time.
Sure.
My nephew did VOs because he was the original voice of Aladdin for
Right.
Disney. And I've talked to a lot of voiceover guys over the years. And the problem with voiceover work too, Rick, is everybody's got a mom and pop studio in their home.
Right.
And so they go on and they look at all these things where they audition all day long, and they charge maybe 40, 50 bucks, maybe
Exactly.
100. They don't make. When I was working for you and I was doing a lot of voiceover work for you guys,
Yeah.
I was doing good.
Yeah.
I wasn't great, but I was doing good.
Sure.
Probably my favorite thing that I ever did for you. And I still love it to this day. And
Bill Clinton.
Patrick Frazier brings that up to me all the time. He said, "Why don't you do that again?" I said, "We originally did the Bill Clinton thing for
Don't
something."
say it. Just say
no.
The gentleman is still alive. There's a car dealership we did, and I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to get sued. And we wrote a script about Bill Clinton. And it was TV, by the way. You came on as Bill Clinton TV.
It was on Channel 7 forever.
Yeah, and everybody at the dealership, including the owner, loved it. Then all of a sudden, we were told you got to pull it because the owner's wife thought it was disrespectful to Clinton, and so it was a joke, man. And we didn't. Well, you know how it is, whatever. But
yeah.
We had fun doing those commercials.
You got to be careful when you do celebrity impersonations. Now, when I was doing them on stage was one thing. When you do them in commercials, you got to be careful because some advertising agencies are very afraid of getting sued by said this person or said that person.
Right.
And the only two lawsuits that ever really came around were from Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mary, whatever her name is, part of the Supremes. That was the only two that ever happened. And they were both thrown out of court. So, I mean, it is but that's what happened to the voiceover business as well. That everybody in the world thinks they have a good voice. They've ruined the business. And J.J. Wilson, his father was Big Wilson in Miami. He's retired because he said, "Gary, I can make somewhat of a living, but I can't make the living I used to anymore."
Yeah, for sure. Now, the other thing I'll just say quick, and we'll get off the subject. When you did the TV commercials, we rented a studio over in Doral, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was, God bless these folks. I think it was a Hispanic Christian station, and we rented their studio out.
Yeah.
And you were dressed up in the blue suit and a red tie and a white shirt.
Yeah.
And people are looking at you now. Although I'll tell you, Jace did it now too. But back in the day, he was a spitting image, so much so the president of the station came out with a couple of secretaries or receptionists, and they said, "Mr. Leno, was our studio up to par with what you've worked at?" And you went right along with say, "This studio is as good as anything I've worked with in New York and Hollywood."
This is such a professional studio. I can't believe how beautiful this is. This beats NBC by a mile. And you're standing there and you're laughing and you're going, because I said, "You watch and see." Because I've had this happen to me in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I told you the story, and I'm not going to repeat it here, of when Jay and I had lunch together at the Mirage.
Right.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Mirage is being torn down.
Torn down, yeah.
It's being torn down. All right, let's switch on over to my favorite subject, because I love the gardens. It's the Japanese. He keeps saying, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to invite me down for one of the events at the Japanese garden. And I said, "But are there going to be Swedish meatballs?" He said, "Gary, it's a Japanese garden." So anyway, go ahead and let's talk about, because you got a couple of events coming up. Rick Del Vecchio is our guest here, and we're talking about the Elks Club. We're talking about the Magic Club. And we're now going to talk about the Japanese Garden in Miami, which is a beautiful facility on Dodge Island. Please go there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to find out about the Elks, the Magic Club, or the Japanese Garden, they can contact me at rickyd52@gmail.com. And that's RICKYDEE52@gmail.com. And I could tell you all about it. Now, the Japanese Garden, our next event is going to be November 3rd. And again, I write community grants to do this, and we do Japanese festivals to promote the Japanese culture and the Japanese Garden. The garden is owned and operated by the city of Miami, and we work with the city of Miami to help promote and maintain the Japanese garden. And like I said, the Japanese garden, the Friends of the Japanese Garden, it's a 501c3, and they have supported events with the Elks organization for years, as has my Magic Club. And in
Yeah.
return, a few years ago, Captain Fred Jaka, he recommended that the Elks let me write, I'm the grant writer, let me write a grant for the Japanese garden. And that's a gratitude grant. And that's $2,500. And we appreciate that because, like any other nonprofit, we need the support of corporations and other community partners. And and again, like I said, a couple of years back, we entertained at a state president's function at our lodge, where I had the taiko drummers. We had ikebana demonstration teaching the wives of the officers how to make Japanese flower arrangements. We had a sushi demonstration, everything Japanese. We had a martial arts presentation, and that state president wrote up that this was one of the best state president's visit events he's ever went to. So the community partners work great together. They complement each other. And like I say, with the Japanese garden, and we work with the city of Miami, we put on these events 3 times a year. Our next event is November 3rd. It is free to the public. That's why we do the grants. The grants pay for this. It's free to the general public. And if you get there, it runs from 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you say, I don't want to spend a whole day there, if you come there for 2 or 3 hours, you'll see everything because we repeat the entertainment over and over again. The taiko drummers perform 3 or 4 times a day. We always have a magician perform at least twice a day. We have the ikebana that does 3 or 4 demonstrations. We have 2 tea ceremonies. Now, the tea ceremony, that's optional. That is $10 optional. That's in a different garden. But you get a 20-minute, 30-minute ceremony, which is a traditional Japanese tea ceremony. It's very interesting if you're
Yes, it is.
interested in the culture. And then you also get a cup of Japanese tea and a homemade sweet for the $10. And then on the sushi demonstration is hilarious. The fellow who does it is funny. He's a showman. And just watching how he makes the sushi, it's interactive, it's fun. That is free. But at the end, he sells the sushi for $10 a plate. And believe me, it sells out. People buy that, gobble that up. But other than that, we also have a Japanese restaurant that serves food for purchase, of course. And we have vendors that you could buy gifts, Japanese and Oriental and Asian gifts. But the entertainment on the main stage and admission to the park is free. And if you just want to go, you can bring your family of 4. You pay for parking. Parking is at Jungle Island. And even they give us a $5 discount for anybody that goes that day. So instead of $20, it's $15 to park. But a family of 4, for $15, you could literally be entertained the whole day. We have kids events, by the way, Kids Corner, for the kids.
Right.
And there's the entertainment for the whole family. And so for $15 in parking, you got a family day of entertainment that would cost you $200 to go to Disney for the day.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. And that's just
maybe more. I heard it's even more than $50 a person. But
you mean at Disney?
Yeah.
At Disney, it's almost $200 per adult.
You're kidding me, man.
No,
my Disney is out there in Nevada.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I agree with you absolutely 100%. I am very familiar with the tea ceremony.
Okay.
And you know why?
Yeah.
I've told you the story.
Right.
Okay. When I was in a certain thing in Southeast Asia, when I had an R&R, I went to Japan to visit a friend of my father's who never came home from World War II. He married a Japanese woman. They opened up a geisha house, teaching women how to dance and do all the stuff that they did. Now, they are not ladies of the evening. Okay. I just want to stress that.
Right.
But for about 15 of my 20 days that I was on leave, which was a long time because I was AWOL. I'll be the first one to tell you. I was getting this tea ceremony an awful lot and getting me washed and scrubbed and felt good and everything else like that. So when they finally caught up with me, my sergeant looked at me and my commanding officer looked at me and said, if we didn't need you out there, I'd put you in the brig for 72 hours. But as it is, I'm going to put you in the brig overnight, and at least I did something to you. And he said, he said, where were you? I told him, he said, the next time, if it's worth it, I'll go with you. So, I mean, it was unbelievable. I had memories, absolute memories.
So,
Now, if people want to get a hold of people at the Japanese Garden, there is a website.
oh yeah, it's Miami Friends of the Japanese Garden.com. So if they just Google Miami Friends of the Japanese Garden, it'll pop up. And they
Okay.
do have, they better, if Mike Paul is watching this, and he better have that website up to date. I know it's a couple months away, but we have people have called me and say, you still got stuff up from last month, last event.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mike works with me on that. And again, even with the Japanese Garden, there's no paid employees. We all do this for the love of what we do.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my friends who passed away, Parenti, of Italian descent, one
Yeah.
day after years, because he's the reason me and Mike got involved with the Japanese Garden years ago. We
Right.
did pro bono work for an event they did with the sister city, Kagoshima. And then I got involved with the Japanese Garden, and now I've been president for the last 10, 15 years. I lost track. But Robert Parenti got me involved. And once I got pulled in as an officer, I asked him to be my government relations guy. And the board of directors is mostly Japanese, except for me, Robert, and Mike. And one day we're having coffee or whatever, and Robert goes, Rick, how did 2 guineas and a Jew end up running this thing? And it's funny, but it's true. But all the people on the board, Mayo Nakamura, Michio Iji Sloan, Akiko Iwata, they're beautiful people, and they love this culture. And I've learned a lot from them. I didn't know anything about the Japanese culture, so I've learned a lot over the years. And I've met some great people. I mean, I get invited to the Council General of Japan's house at least once a year for celebrations and meetings and stuff like that. And the problem with that is they get changed out every 2 or 3 years. I think I've went through 4 of them so far. The same thing with city commissioners. Ken Russell was a great commissioner to work with. He ran for Senate or Congress and didn't make it, so he gave up his commission seat early. He told me his replacement of Mr. Pardo is a great guy and that he'll work with me on a Japanese Garden. And I haven't had a chance to meet with the 3 of them. But
the thing about the Japanese culture is that they appreciate when people get older.
Yeah.
They appreciate the intelligence of the older people. But they are big, as a lot of Asians are, except for maybe the Chinese a little bit. But they are big on ceremony and protocol.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
You bow when you're supposed to bow. You do what you have to do when you do it.
You hand the business card with both hands. You can't see it, but when you hand the business card to somebody here.
Yeah, and it was amazing when I was in Japan how
that's my Japanese Garden business card. I don't know if you can see it. And then when you present the business card, it's like this and bow down. Yeah, it's very ceremonial, as you said.
It's all culture. It's all respect, I think is the word that needs to be put in there. It's absolute respect. Mr. Del Vecchio, you're not going to believe this, but the hour has gone by.
The hour's up. It goes fast. Yeah, that was great.
It does very, very well. I want to appreciate you coming on board. This program will be on the YouTube channel in just a couple of days. People will be able to watch it all they want.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you. And I will call you as soon as this show is over because I want to get you booked for September. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And but I just want to thank everybody out there for tuning in. Next week we have Comedy Week. Mr. Mark Riccondonna is going to be joining us along with a special surprise. Someone who some of you may know from the Midwest, and we're sort of looking forward to that. But I want to thank again my guest, Rick Del Vecchio from the Japanese Garden, the Elks Club, and the Brotherhood of Magicians in South Florida. Thank you so very much for joining us. And please, until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other.